That worked.
I understand that's my fault. I'm not going to take blame that on nobody. Earlier today, Santander Bank called. Tariq in the Nissan truck, he is my, what do you call it? The primary. I'm the co-signer. We broke up September. I haven't had access to this car, right? Santander's like, oh, well, if you got to get a record from the police station to show that he's not, obligating with the thing. I called the 989 number earlier. I spoke to a man first, and then I spoke to a lady, and then a man called me back, but the phone disconnected because it was a Wi-Fi call. And that officer was telling me to follow him to 225. When I called, I was asking for an officer to meet me on Stuyvesant because I was in pursuit of the car. Because I'm never able to find this person to do what I have to do with this loan. You get what I'm saying? So I thought if I could call you, I don't know the law. I just know what they told me on the phone. So I felt if I call the police station, you know what I'm saying?
You know what you could do?
What?
Save your story.
Tempest Newsom was charged with
That's funny.
aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer, resisting arrest, eluding, endangering the welfare of a child, and several motor vehicle violations.
Child predators are among the most disturbing individuals that exist. But what happens when these criminals finally get caught? Here are two cases. We'll start with the extremely disturbing case of Timothy Nielsen. On July 18th, 2022, police responded to a
What's up, you
call
guys?
about a suspicious man in the neighborhood. This suspect, revealed to be Timothy Nielsen, was searching for a 12-year-old girl he found online. Nielsen came across the girl's YouTube channel and would frequently leave inappropriate comments. Eventually, the girl's parents shut down her YouTube channel. Over the following 5 years, Nielsen created multiple fake aliases to contact the young girl on various social platforms. He messaged close friends of the young girl until he could locate her exact location. That's when Nielsen made the over 2,000-mile journey from Oregon to Ohio to find her. And that brings us to now. The following encounter would be extremely disturbing.
On someone's door trespassing?
Yeah, if you don't have permission to be on their property, absolutely. So why are you going door to door if you're trying to meet some girl from the internet for a date?
I've been after her for 5 years and I haven't heard nothing from her. If I find her one day, that's fine. If not, I can leave. I just want a no answer or a yes answer.
Yeah, we're moving on from this.
Parents
Ugh.
While most people are typically just silly while they're drunk, others get very aggressive and want to fight. Here are 3 times when drunk people attack the cops, starting with when a drunk woman bit an officer's hand for trying to arrest her over a traffic stop. On December 4th, 2021, a blue car was reported for its erratic driving to officers. Once an officer spotted the vehicle and stopped it, the driver inside decided to drive away. Officers were able to catch up to her when she stopped at a gas station. However, when she was confronted, she pretended the traffic stop never even happened.
Hey man,
Who just walked in owning that car?
Bathroom. Immediately, bathroom. Oh, Freddy's here. Hold on. Oh, I probably should explain. This is a let me see if I can pull this up properly without showing anything. I think this is it. Okay. So this is week 4, part 2, simple pendulum activity. I'm restarting it because now I know what I need to do, but also it just was looking completely wrong to me. Okay. I have other stuff showing up here. I'm just listening to audio or video, I mean, of chases. Let me move this to the side so I can see chat. I also have FNAF merch that my father bought for me. It's an advent calendar. I was going to show this last night, but then I realized it was Halloween night, so I didn't. By the way, I dressed up as William Afton. Yeah, this is the Funko Pop. I don't even know if you can see this because I can't see my camera. There we go, that's better. The Funko Pop. Maybe in like a second, I just gotta get this one swing correct. Well, excuse you. Sync share. Okay. So 38. So if I make this go a little bit more to the side, and then make this go here, actually needs to go a bit more up. It can be a little bit further out because it's a little bit fast. This one can go probably to 40. 41. That's better. Because it needs that. Oh, that's weird. Why did the S curve just go completely too subtle? Where it should be like this. Except it needs to be a little bit more delayed, but whatever. Speaking about other animations, I wanted to talk about the one I posted last night for Halloween. I could either keep going with that animation or move on to another one. I still have to finish something I'm working on for the collab, but yeah. This had a lot of edits in it, this one, because I wanted to have more of like a glitchy feeling to it. So it's extremely laggy for me. But anyways, if there's a song you guys want me to do or we want me to continue doing this, let me know.
What are you gonna do about it?
Come out of the stall and get out. Now.
I'm peeing. Oh,
Come out of the
I'm peeing. Get the fuck.
Get out here now. Get out! Get your fucking hands up!
What did I do? I didn't do anything. I just went to pee.
Wasn't you.
What?
That's That's why they told me you're driving that blue car, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. You are now detained. So I figured out exactly why you left from...
Detained?
Because you took off my traffic stop.
What are you talking about?
Why? Why? Why me? Oh, you know what I could do? Wait, delete. Oop, no, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to delete this one. So it should be 30. $35 here, so this actually does need to go down because it needs an S curve. And search up streamers being arrested. I've seen one of, I can't remember his name. I Show Speed.
What's up everyone, and welcome back to Top 5 Central. Today we're looking at the top 5 streamers who got arrested or the cops called on them live on stream.
Bye bye.
I'm super excited to announce that starting now, every couple videos per week will have a secret and...
Yep.
Number 5, Caleb Hart 42. To start this crazy story off, Caleb Hart 42 technically wasn't actually arrested, but the police did show up to his house ready to take whatever action was needed. The gamer had been streaming for about 2 hours when his mom came in to ask if he called the cops. Apparently, they received a threatening call from him and had the house surrounded. Caleb had no idea what was going on, and it soon became pretty obvious that he'd been set up. The person who made the call had pretended to be Caleb, saying that he had his family tied up and was getting ready to kill them. Now, of course, he was just sitting at his computer though, so obviously it wasn't him. Now, no serious harm was done, but the video has plenty of awkward moments, from Caleb having to explain what Twitch was to the police, to his mom trying to explain streaming over the phone. In the end, the guy was tracked down and Caleb didn't get arrested, but it was still a really close call.
This stream, the message you get.
Oh, that's why it looks
This is
weird.
the chat right here.
What is that on? What?
Well, this is basically like, this is pretty much
Twitch TV.
yeah.
I've never heard.
Okay, hold on.
I don't know why, but he didn't have a shirt on for streaming. But then when the cops show up, he puts on a shirt.
What the heck is this Twitch? TWITCH.tv.
Wait, hold on.
Yep.
It's got a link.
I mean, he's got.
Number 4, Random Rambo. The controversy around Random Rambo's arrest made waves in 2015, and it wasn't until last year that the truth actually came out. It all started in one of his streams when his desktop showed a really suspicious file that seemed to be child pornography. Basically, it led a lot of viewers to report him to the police. He then went on holiday with his wife and kid, which many people took to mean he was definitely guilty, so the number of people reporting him increased even more. Finally, the police showed up while he was streaming and
Okay,
took all
see
his
ya.
computers before arresting him for possession of child pornography. However, even the police admitted that while they had to check everything, the file that started all the drama definitely wasn't what everyone was saying. It even came out that many people had been spreading even more untrue rumors to the police. Everything came back clean, but his career and reputation definitely took a hit. It just goes to show how quickly a rumor could ruin someone's life. Honestly, I feel super bad for the guy, but I'm glad in the end the truth came out and he redeemed himself.
I stream. I'm fairly popular on Twitch. A picture was shared somewhere with my stream, my face, and a very badly named file. Suggesting child pornography. Yeah, people weren't happy about that, I suppose. I understand why. So yeah, but when it surfaced, I of course, as any innocent person would, I went on stream expecting that nobody could believe that because the file clearly looked like bullshit. And that was the typical clickbait thing, but apparently, yeah, people believed that it was child pornography, and I got a shitstorm of another world. People I never heard about tried to take me down. Twitch channels, YouTubers, you name it. Everybody
Oh shit,
tried
that's the wrong thing to use.
To not so much like when.
Number 3, Koopa Troopa 787. Streamers have
This
been
one I don't
familiar with
need.
the swatting trend for a while now, so when it happens, they basically know how to respond. But that doesn't mean everyone else does, though. When streamer and army veteran Koopa Troopa 787 was targeted, it was his 10-year-old brother that answered the door. He was faced with a 10-member SWAT team that was all holding assault rifles. The police were initially very forceful with Joshua, but they switched gears when he mentioned Twitch. I'm assuming they linked it back to similar calls that they've had to deal with. Even so, his little brother was terrified and could have been shot. What's even crazier is a second swatting was attempted just after when someone called to say the visit had left him suicidal. A famous swatter was arrested the same day for repeated prank calls and threatening to hack the banking and social security information of his targets. He's actually still in prison to this day. Now, was it the same guy? I'm not exactly sure.
So let it be with me, but do not involve my family in any way, shape, or form with this. They don't deserve that.
That's better. That's much better.
He is 10 years old.
I do realize I wasn't reacting to the video there, and the guy is crying. I am sorry about that. I was really focused on this looking better. Trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong. I think that this might be able to get. Nope, never mind. Ugh. Okay, moving on from cop stuff. Let's look up some theories to listen to. I know one person I haven't listened to in a while. ID Fantasy. Let's see. Looks like she has a couple good ones. This is a true story.
One of the most controversial. The Midnight Motorist minigame. Pizzeria Simulator was a game about tying up loose ends, but it's also given us one of the most controversial loose ends in the franchise through the Midnight Motorist minigame. From the identities of the characters to the purpose behind the set design, every part of this minigame has been the subject of endless debate, which has only been made more relevant by the release of the most recent Tales from the Pizzaplex book. So what's really going on with this minigame, and is it even possible to come up with a satisfying answer? Well, stay tuned and consider subscribing, because I'm going to go over just what I think is really going on in Midnight Motorist. To start, let's summarize what we know for sure about this minigame before we start trying to interpret things. In the beginning of the minigame, you start on a road surrounded by trees driving a purple car with rain pouring down. And if you continue down the road and turn off to the left side of the screen when not blocked by trees, there's a clearing with what looks to be a pile of dirt in the corner. Go on further down the road to the fork and go off the left side of the screen again, and you'll end up in a parking lot for a building labeled Juniors. Upon exiting the car, the player character is revealed to be a yellowish-orange character sprite, who I will be referring to as Mustard Man from here on out for the sake of convenience and alliteration.
And most people use Mustard Man as the joke.
On talking to the green guy standing outside Juniors, Mustard Man is told, "Come on, you know you can't be here. Don't make this more difficult than it has to be." With nothing left to do there, Mustard Man has to get back in the car, go back to the main road, and continue driving down until you eventually turn, leave the car in this empty space here, and walk up in front of a house. The camera zooms in as Mustard Man approaches the building, and upon entering, you can see a person wearing gray sitting on a couch or armchair watching TV. If you speak to them, they tell Mustard Man to leave him alone tonight. He had a rough day. Mustard Man decides to ignore this advice, and if you head up, you come to a door, presumably leading to the room belonging to him, the gray guy mentioned. Mustard Man knocks on the door, but when there's no response, he says, "I told you not to close the door." If you try to leave after that, he'll say, "This is my house. He can't ignore me like that." And upon knocking again, he yells for him to open the door. When there's once again no response, Mustard Man decides to find a way in from the outside. Heading around the back of the house, there's a shattered window with a set of footsteps leading upwards and away from the window, and one pair of large three-toed footprints near the bushes facing the house. Seeing this, Mustard Man says, "Ran off to that place again. He'll be sorry when he gets back." And then the minigame ends. From just the surface level, it's pretty easy to see just how much there is to dissect in this minigame. But while there are a lot of variables to be aware of, they do tie together in a way where we can get a pretty solid idea of what's going on. With this in mind, I think one of the most important things to consider when theorizing about this minigame is the context that it was released in, since that gives us a good starting point for just how parts of the minigame should be analyzed. Like previously mentioned, most of Pizzeria Simulator is about tying up loose ends, which means that when we're considering Midnight Motorist, we need to be aware that as much as this thing did cause a ton of confusion, it was presumably meant to be solvable. Additionally, while each of the lore minigames is meant to explain or give context to one of the series' mysteries, there's another side to the minigames. They each represent a beginning for some character or event in the franchise. In the Security Puppet minigame, we see a more detailed version of the events that led to Charlie Emily, William's first victim according to her father Henry, possessing the puppet. In Fruity Maze, we see how William lured away Susie, the first victim of the Missing Children's Incident, or MCI. Even the Candy Cadet stories each explain the origins of certain events, characters, and their motivations, which I give an in-depth explanation of in one of my previous videos you'll find linked in the description. As such, it makes sense to me that Midnight Motorist was intended to clear up the beginnings of another major series event. But to figure out what exactly that event was and what the minigame is meant to clarify, there are a few things that need to be ironed out. First, when exactly this minigame takes place in regards to other series events. Second, who the characters we see in this minigame are so we know who's relevant. And third, how those characters connect to the places, objects, and surrounding context of the minigame to give an idea of the bigger picture. Fortunately, we're given a few clues that we can work with to get started. In the files for Midnight Motorist, the lore portion of the minigame is labeled Later That Night. The title Later That Night seems to imply that something specific happened earlier in the day, and whatever that event was important. So just what event is Midnight Motorist after? There are quite a few possibilities after all. There's the bites of 83 and 87, Elizabeth's death, the MCI, but the event that I think is most likely is Charlie's death. The fact that Scott Cawthon bothered to add rain in this minigame seems rather important when the one other minigame that includes rain is the minigame showing the night Charlie was killed and began possessing the puppet. In that minigame, the rain is what causes the puppet to collapse on Charlie's body, but in the events of Later That Night, the only purpose the rain seems to serve is background noise once you're out of the driving segments. The rain being included makes it seem as though it's important, so with the Later That Night labeling in the files, that would then give a reason for the rain. Of course, I'll say anything is possible, and it's good to be willing to consider alternative perspectives, but to me this seems like a pretty clear connection. But if this is the case, why does it matter? That's where the characters come in. In Midnight Motorist, there are a few major characters, and boy are the identities of these characters hotly debated. Is the Mustard Man William Afton or the drunk father of a kidnapped kid? Is Michael Afton the TV watcher or is he instead the runaway? Well, as of the recent Tales from the Pizzaplex book, we may have been given some clues thanks to the story Didophobia. Didophobia follows a boy named Rory who is quite literally experiencing the FNAF 4 nightmares in the FNAF 4 bedroom night after night, only for him to one day wake up, realize he's 10 years older than he thought he was, and find out that he's been subject to perception-altering fear gas experiments for the past 10 years that have been running automatically despite the place being abandoned. Leaving the rooms he was contained in, he finds himself in Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental, where he stumbles across a motionless Ballora, and either Foxy's empty casing or Lolbit crumpled on the floor, based on how it's mentioned that the animatronic Pirate Fox had black eyes. Unfortunately for Rory's escape attempt, the elevator out of Circus Baby's doesn't work, and he heads to the office control room where he finds a two-way radio he uses to contact his childhood friend Wade's walkie-talkie. Wade tells him to try and find a generator to get the power on to activate the elevator, and that he might be able to find said generator in the rooms he was trapped in. Rory does find the generator, but right as he's about to touch it, the intercom turns on, and a man's voice tells Rory that he wanted to be there, and that he had ran away from home, didn't fit in at school, and that he was taken care of in the experiments in a way that he had never been outside of them, that this was his home and where he was safe and cared for. Rory is overcome by doubts, and when he reactivates the generator, the gas starts flowing again, and he's back to being trapped in the nightmare cycle. Meanwhile, the cassette that played the message rewound for the next time Rory would make an escape attempt. There's a lot of fascinating information we're given in this story, but one thing I want to specifically draw attention to is the detail that Rory supposedly ran away from home before being experimented on with the FNAF 4 nightmares. He was a runaway, just like the kid from Midnight Motorist. But I don't think this means that Rory is literally the Midnight Motorist runaway. I think Rory is meant to represent the true runaway, FNAF 4's crying child. Now before you click off the video or leave a comment about how the Tales books aren't parallels and it doesn't matter that the Tales books being game continuity would mean the Pizzaplex existed before FNAF 3 happened, just hear me out. We've known for a while that the crying child and the FNAF 4 nightmares are linked to the hidden areas of Sister Location. We can see areas of FNAF 4 on the breaker room map, and in the private room, if the code 1983 is punched into the keypad on the wall, the screens all change to views of the bedroom and the plush trap hallway from FNAF 4. On top of this, right beside the monitors is a Fredbear plush with what looks like a walkie-talkie, directly calling back to the Fredbear plush that spoke to the crying child throughout the FNAF 4 minigames, and potentially another connection to the whole Rory situation in Dinophobia. But why do I think all this means that Rory is meant to represent the crying child as the runaway and isn't literally the runaway himself? Well, other than the crying child being the one to have the Fredbear plush and Rory not being associated with it in any way, just as the voice tells Rory that his family didn't care about him, the Fredbear plush tells the crying child that he's hated. Just like the voice tells Rory he's safe and cared for in the experiments, the plush tells the crying child to not be scared because it's there with him. With the walkie-talkie holding plush being present in the Sister Location bunker where their experiments were being observed from, I don't think it's a stretch to say the speaker in Dinophobia and the speaker through the Fredbear plush are meant to be the same individual. What's more, thanks to the implications of the Sister Location bunker and the shared bright yellow text color used in both the FNAF 4 minigames and Fruity Maze in Pizzeria Simulator, we can infer that the speaker in all these instances is none other than William Afton. But you know who also speaks in a bright yellow text color? Mustard Man from Midnight Motorist, who just so happens to have a purple car of all colors, is driving around on what's presumably the night William got out of his car to kill Charlie, then drove away, and has a son who's run away from home who he threatens will be sorry when he gets back, perhaps implying an eventual punishment of subjection to the FNAF 4 nightmare experiments. However, this raises a different issue. We don't play as the crying child during the main nights of FNAF 4, but rather as his older brother Michael. In the survival logbook on a page about dreams, Mike draws a very detailed picture of one of the nightmare animatronics, which would be impossible if he hadn't seen them. On top of this, in the ambiance for the nights, there's altered audio from one of Phone Guy's calls from FNAF 1, which the crying child wouldn't have had any way to experience. So wouldn't Mike have had to be the one who was experimented on? Well, as it turns out, the new Tales book also gives us some answers on this front in another one of its stories, Alone Together. In this story, we're given a list of symptoms for being haunted by a spirit, including but not limited to having strange dreams and experiencing memories that aren't your own. If we apply that to Michael, it would perfectly explain how he would have seen the fear experiments without having actually experienced them. It's a sign of him being haunted by his younger brother, mixing with some of his own experiences from FNAF 1. Speaking of Mike, though, a common theory is he is actually the runaway. However, there are a few reasons why I disagree with that. For one,
okay. So I have the yearbox with me, and I was gonna wait a little bit for this, but I probably will do like shorts or something showing all this. I need to move this out of my face. But I wanted to open this now. Luckily, they do come in little bags. I need to cut. Never mind, I can rip them. Lovely. Okay, first one here. Very, very tiny, by the way. Looks like a candy cane hat with red and green areas. I think this is Toy Freddy. Could be a normal Freddy, I'm not sure, but it has cheeks. Whoops. It has cheeks, so yeah. Throw that down there for the moment. So yeah, that's weird. We'll do we'll do 2 for now, and then do 2 a little bit later. We're not doing them all at once. This one came in a red bag. This looks like Chica. Oop, that was a lot easier to rip than the other one. It's cute. So it's like a mini cupcake with it. Can't see because it's extremely blurry for some reason. I don't know why it's not showing it, but yeah. She has a bib that says ho 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 on it. And this is definitely FNAF 1 Chica. And luckily, I'm able to put them right back in, so that's perfect. You can just put it back up the box and move it. It's Velcro, the cover, which is cool. Very strong Velcro, by the way. Like, I thought I was gonna rip the box open when I did it last time. What was that? Oh well, okay. So the bottom chain's looking better. I just gotta get it done fully through. So I did notice that it's like basically the same each time. So if I do FN, so it's 46 plus 16, 62.
There are all the previously mentioned connections between Didophobia, FNAF 4, and the Runaway implication, but a major reason I think Mike's not the Runaway is because he has connections to another character. From FNAF 4, we know Michael Afton speaks in and wears the color gray, and he's quite specifically shown in sister location.
Hey Freddy, did you see the 2 Funko Pops I opened? Oh, you didn't see them? Hold on. From the advent calendar I have. I'm doing them early because I am hoping to have videos of these little guys for each day when it is Christmas. So this is I want to say Toy Freddy, but it could just be Freddy with cheeks. He has it doesn't want to focus, so I'm sorry about that. Yeah, he has a green bow tie, green nose, green ears, and all that. Cotton candy hat, which I like. It's a nice detail. And then the second one we got was Chica. Definitely FNAF 1. With her mini cupcake and her, it says ho 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 on her bib. We're gonna do 2 more in probably, I would say when I get another swing done, we'll do another 2. Which shouldn't be long.
To enjoy watching TV in his downtime, just like a certain individual in Midnight Motorist. Of course, there is one issue often raised when Mike being the TV watcher is suggested, and that is that Mike in FNAF 4 is less than kind to his younger brother. This doesn't particularly mesh well with the same person who tells William to lay off the kid who, in this interpretation, would be his younger brother who he's shown to actively pick on. Why would he go from defending his brother from his dad to going out of his way to mess with the poor kid? The thing is, it's actually nowhere near as far-fetched as it seems. For one thing, I personally certainly have seen a somewhat similar dynamic with my own younger brothers. They love each other, and I've seen them defend each other to our parents plenty of times when our parents were upset at one of them in a way that they considered unnecessary. However, the younger is more sensitive, which often rubs the older the wrong way whenever he gets emotional or acts in a way that the older considers immature. The dynamic between Michael and the crying child seems to me like a somewhat similar dynamic with this, particularly when you consider that the crying child likely didn't become a non-stop crying child until after the events of Midnight Motorist and the Nightmare Experiments. We see in FNAF 4 that a big reason Mike tries to scare his brother is because he's a crybaby, and we also know from the final night cutscene that Mike cares about and regrets having hurt his brother. Not to mention, we don't see anything outside of these minigames where they might be totally fine around each other, so to stereotype Mike's character to just guy who bullies his brother is likely inaccurate. As such, given the couch person in Midnight Motorist has the same outfit color, text color, and hobbies as Michael, it stands to reason that this would be the case to indicate that this is in fact Michael Afton and to solidify that these characters are the members of the Afton family. From all this, we can also conclude that the event Midnight Motorist is meant to be explaining is the lead up to FNAF 4, and what happened with the crying child given his involvement and William's threat. But then, why would it matter that this minigame takes place the night of Charlie's death? And how does that all relate to the rest of the minigame? Well, I think it's because this minigame was meant to point to which characters died when, the origin of the shadow animatronics, and the true speaker in FNAF 4's final minigame. The death order for the characters in Five Nights at Freddy's has been a debated topic for quite some time, with a lot of contenders for who would have been first, with the main three debates being between Charlie, Emily,
I saw the RoboCop game. It kind of looks interesting, but I can't afford it at the moment. Oh, excuse me. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Let's get two more done. The good part is, if you open it, it has black and white tiles where you can put them on for like display. At the moment, I don't have any room for that, as you can see behind me as well. I need to clean a lot more. Probably will tonight. Okay, it looks like we might have a Foxy. This one came in a green bag this time. Okay. This Foxy looks like it's candy cane. Keep it more out here. Candy cane Foxy. I love the little shorts. Metal is still the same, and then the eye patch is green. That's actually really cute. Put them away in his little cubby. Ripped. Candy cane Foxy, yeah. This is a red bag. Oops. Can you tell who that little shit is? Nothing really special, just changes colors to red and green instead of blue and red. But I love that scene too. I love the three scenes where it just scares them. It is weird the last scene though. Okay, that was 3 and 4. Trust me, I think we'll have all of them open by the end of the stream. But I will be posting them on for shorts during December.
Elizabeth Afton and the Crying Child. In Pizzeria Simulator, Henry says he was the first one wounded by...
So this is more for people that watch these streams before anything else. And I do appreciate that. I truly do appreciate that. But this is going to be for... These are going to be for the shorts that I'm going to be doing. I do have to get shorts up a bit if I want to start making money. So, yeah.
William's actions, but the concern often brought up in regards to this is that William Afton would need some motivation to kill Charlie, and that the death of one of his children would provide that, and not necessarily be attributable to William. Elizabeth wouldn't exactly work since she only died after William made the fun times to kidnap and kill kids for his remnant experiments, so for this reason the Crying Child is often suggested as being the first. However, if Midnight Motorist is the night of Charlie's death and the runaway is the Crying Child, that would put Charlie's death before the Crying Child's, which actually makes sense given the context from the Silver Eyes trilogy. While the books take take place in a different continuity, they are still, as stated by Scott, to be canon, which is a differentiation I go over in a previous.
I don't get what you mean, Freddy. Just realized I'm not showing the screen. I don't know what you mean by that. Also, I need to... Why's the chat box not showing up? Weird, I don't know why the chat's not working. Well, I can see the chat. I mean, like, the one that shows up on screen. Like, the part where Foxy Kid sees Abby. I honestly don't know. Are you meaning the ending? Do you mean the ending? $62 plus 16 equals 78. Oh, this scene. He didn't transform. Ghosts can separate from their thing because you can see that when the golden child is, you know, talking to Abby, he's much further into the room than he would be normally. And then also Abby sees them while they're not even at the pizzeria. So that's one thing to remind yourself. Is that they're not just bound to those creatures. They can travel a little bit out. And if someone can see them, that's perfectly fine. That's great, even. Because they're not ignored anymore. So we're going to go back to...
One of the most which characters died when, the origin of the shadow animatronics, and the true speaker in FNAF 4's final minigame. The death order for the characters in Five Nights at Freddy's has been a debated topic for quite some time, with a lot of contenders for who would have been first, with the main three debates being between Charlie Emily, Elizabeth Afton, and the Crying Child. In Pizzeria Simulator, Henry says he was the first one wounded by William's actions, but the concern often brought up in regards to this is that William Afton would need some motivation to kill Charlie, and that the death of one of his children would provide that, and not necessarily be attributable to William. Elizabeth wouldn't exactly work since she only died after William made the fun times to kidnap and kill kids for his remnant experiments, so for this reason the Crying Child is often suggested as being the first. However, if Midnight Motorist is the night of Charlie's death and the Runaway is the Crying Child, that would put—
Well, technically both of the Afton deaths, Elizabeth and the Crying Child were both animatronic deaths. They weren't by him. So technically none of them are the first, or even kills but for Afton. If you want to think about it that way, I'm not entirely sure, but that's the way I look at it. So I never seen them as the first. I've seen them as the first animatronic kills, maybe, yes, but not William Afton kills. I've seen them as kills, obviously, but not that. Yeah, that's why I was really excited about the Foxy role, because I wanted to see how they could do with just an animatronic itself. No, they couldn't do him because his legs and arms and his body were very revealing, and they couldn't hide someone in it like they could with the others. And for example, with Spring Bonnie, or we could just say William Afton's suit, because they don't call it Spring Bonnie, they call it the Yellow Rabbit. You know what? That's what I'll name him for the movie. The Yellow Rabbit is meant to be seen as it's a suit plus an animatronic, but the main four are not supposed to be seen as that. They're meant to be seen as just animatronics alone, so no one could actually play as Foxy, even if they were going to a route that someone's wearing him, because of the legs and stuff. So plus the Spring Bonnie or the Yellow Rabbit suit is completely hollow, maybe except for the mask. But most parts are completely hollow because it's just supposed to be a suit. That's why it folds so easily in the movie, because they forgot about that. It's not meant to fold that easily, especially when there's spring locks there and other metal parts. But just barely underneath. Actually, with this one, it's not that far. We're gonna just put it on the middle there.
put Charlie's death before the Crying Child's, which actually makes sense given the context from the Silver Eyes trilogy. While the books take place in a different continuity, they are still, as stated by Scott, to be canon, which is a differentiation I go over in a previous video that will be linked below. And in that series, we're given more characterization for William than anywhere else in the series as of the date of recording, and that includes what seems to be his motivation for killing Charlie. It's mentioned that William had kept journals where he flip-flopped between near worship and extreme jealousy of his business partner Henry, and throughout the books, he's constantly trying to be better better than him. As Springtrap, he says that he's far more than Henry ever was, and he starts experimenting with Remnant to try and replicate the way Henry was able to create artificial life in the robot replicas he made of Charlie. Since in that continuity, Elizabeth was killed by one of the Charlie bots William stole and was experimenting with, and the crying child is never implied to exist, it stands to reason that this jealousy of Henry is why William killed his daughter not only in the novel trilogy, but potentially in the games. However, I do think it's possible that this jealousy could have been partially related to family, and for that I go to the dirt pile. Most people suggest this is a grave, and I think that's quite likely. However, while some people have proposed this to be the crying child's, for obvious reasons, I think a different candidate is more likely. I did think about it being Elizabeth, since she doesn't make an appearance in the minigame, but this again brought me to the issue of her death not really being possible until after William Afton had a reason to make his murder robots. If you don't think Midnight Motorist is the night of Charlie's death, you could theoretically still make that work if you really wanted to, but the naming of the minigame and the reigns still feels intentional to me. With that in mind, I think a possible candidate for who this grave belongs to is the one other family member we
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I was dealing with some stuff. Okay. Did I get this? Is this a new one? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this. Wait. Did I do an extra swing without opening some? Well, anyways, I know I gotta do a new one because there's a open some. Let me just so it's in the middle of 5. 78. 78 plus 16 equals 94. By the way, this is not how I normally do it. It's just that I see the pattern. I know it would be better. One, two. I should put in the 4th one. Sorry, this one we have to look at. So it's above the second. Okay. Save. And 2 more. 2 more. That we gotta do. Just a reminder, these will be shorts, so if you want to get a better view of them, keep an eye out on December 1st through the 24th. Just so you can get a better view. I think I know who this is. Okay. These are very easy to open, and I do appreciate that. But this is Ballora herself. On her little stand. I forgot I need to make this bigger. Hold on, give me a second. There we go. A little bit bigger. Look at that. That's so cool. I'll clean all that up in a bit. Probably when the stream's done, I'll do a huge cleaning of garbage. I do have a bit of a problem. If I can open this one, that would be great, please. Thank you. Okay. Got another red bag, and I think this might be a Foxy. Not entirely sure. You can't actually see into this bag that easily. Unless Foxy's red in this one. Wonder if they randomize it or it's the same in each advent. It looks like he's holding a pie. He is the normal Foxy, that's why I couldn't see him. But he's holding something. I can't tell if it's a pie or a pizza. I'd have to get some professional opinion on that. I'm not ignoring your smooth criminal thing. It's just not really the most important thing for me at the moment. Just want to say that. Yeah, that was normal Ballora with normal Foxy with holding something I don't know what it was. Okay, come back here.
We don't see in this minigame Mrs. Afton. It's always seemed a little strange that we haven't really seen any sign of Mrs. Afton in any of the games. And if we go off of the pretty major parallels between the character of Vanessa in Security Breach and Elizabeth Afton that I've discussed in previous videos, such as her dad's name Bill being a nickname for William, and Vanessa heavily implying that her dad said he'd always be watching and is compartmentalized in her mind, which we know is referring to Glitch Trap, amongst other things, we can potentially use Vanessa's therapy sessions to clue in what may have happened to Mrs. Afton. Even if you don't think Vanessa's is literally Elizabeth, it definitely seems as though she's meant to connect to her in both appearance and backstory elements, so bear with me for a bit. In one of Vanessa's therapy sessions, we find out that her parents divorced, and that in the custody battle, her father Bill forced her to testify against her mother, and that something happened to her mom afterwards. I think it's possible from the phrasing of, "I know your mom," static cut, after she lost the custody case, that she died. If all this is applied to Mrs. Afton, it could explain why there's a notable lack of parental supervision for the Afton siblings, the grave that couldn't really be any of the kids, and potentially where part of William's bitterness towards Henry stemmed from. It's possible that William, seeing how Henry had mechanical skills and a perfect family he himself lacked, took it out on Charlie when he happened to notice that she was outside and alone. I'm not saying it's because of anything that may have happened with Mrs. Afton, since she probably divorced William for a very good reason given his weird jealousy worship journaling, and the fact that he went to murder as a solution, but that whole situation could have been something additional to William's jealousy while simultaneously being a reason why we never see her. All this would put the death order for FNAF as possibly Mrs. Afton, Charlie, then either the crying child or Elizabeth. But why exactly would this matter to FNAF 4? Well, I think that has to do with the strange footprints outside the crying child's window, why and where he ran away, and the true speaker in the final FNAF 4 minigame. The first thought I had when seeing the large three-toed footprints was that it could be William or someone else in the spring bond.
If you guys want me to do a whole live stream about other theories, I would love to do that. But yeah, that's another one. So we're on 7 and 8 right now. Not trying to break the whole box, because I am going to need it for this shots. Oh, I think I know who this could be. Wonder what their idea of this one is. Okay. Is this who I think? Yep, it is Helpy. It's Helpy, alright. So he has blue eyes. With a candy cane, and he has his hand out. That's definitely Helpy, because I think it would have faceplates. Let me look at Ballora again. She might not. Oh yeah, she has faceplates. Yeah, she has faceplates. So what I mean by faceplates is she has the lines for them. Obviously, she doesn't have faceplates because it's a Funko Pop. It's not gonna be that well done. Even with the action figures, they didn't do that either. So, but it's cool. We got a Helpy though. Okay, next one's a red one. It might be a Bonnie. I'm not sure though. Definitely not from the ears. But this could be from multiple. We haven't got a normal Bonnie yet, or normal Freddy. Oh. Okay, so I thought this was Toy Bonnie at first, just by the color. It's not. This is normal Bonnie, just because there is no cheeks at all. But it looks like he has lights around. Okay. And the red little dot on his muzzle, it reminds me of like a mistletoe for some reason. But yeah, that's cool. Have you played the game by Steve Wolf for Hello Neighbor? I can't remember the exact name at the moment. So
Bonnie suit, since that would account for the size and shape of the prints. However, there are a few problems there. It would be a little weird for William to be upset about his kid running away from home if he was the one who made him run away from home, but also there's the fact that there are only 2 prints directly facing the house, which, when compared to the trail of child-sized footprints, is very strange. There are none further, and they don't go back in the opposite direction. Additionally, if the suit had been out in the rain, that would have triggered the spring locks, killing the person inside. It would be a similar situation for any other animatronic that could have been there, since, as we see with the puppet, they don't do well with water damage. But there are actually animatronics where it would make sense in the context of this minigame. The shadow animatronics. As supernatural entities, they wouldn't be bothered by the rain, and would be able to physically manifest and disappear at will, which could explain the noticeable footprints in the rain that have 3 toes, just like both shadow animatronics. On top of this, the shadows are shown to lead people to places in the series. The
original
FNAF 3 minigames show shadows.
I never completed that game.
Shadow Freddy leading the animatronics to the safe room where they're dismantled by William Afton. In the Fazbear Fright story You're the Band, a possessed kid climbs out his window and is led by a shadow to the Freddy's restaurant featured in the story. With this in mind, I think that whichever shadow this was did something similar, leading the crying child to something they thought needed to be seen, and I think what they led him to was Charlie Emily's body. In FNAF AR, Shadow Bonnie appears when obtaining Dark Remnant, and the dark coloration in the books is often used to connect to the substance agony. I think that the shadow animatronics could be entities that manifest from agony. With this in mind, I think that whichever shadow did this in Midnight Motorist led the crying child to the cause of their creation, the scene of Charlie Emily's death. In the minigame, Mustard Man says the kid ran off to that place again, which implies it's somewhere that the kid would have reason to try and go frequently. In FNAF 4, we see in the crying child's room that at one point he did like the animatronics, and could have been sneaking out to see them since we know that the restaurant was in walking distance from his house. If later that night does refer to Charlie's death, it would give there some purpose for him to be led there, as well as potentially explain why he's so scared of the animatronics, or why William would use the animatronics to scare him. After all, one of Scott's lore clues he gave for FNAF 4 was, what is seen in the shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child. And if the crying child got there and found Charlie's body with the puppet animatronic collapsed on top of it, he could have misunderstood that as it being the animatronic that killed her, sparking his fear of the animatronics. William, then seeing this and wanting to keep suspicion off himself, encouraged this fear of animatronics through the nightmare experiments and the Fredbear plush. However, some people suggest that the runaway was going to visit the grave. After all, the footprints are going up in that general direction, and the only other thing in that direction that we're aware of is Junior's, which most agree is a bar that William, or whoever they think Mustard Man is, would get drunk at and may have led to his behavior during and around the minigame to some degree. After all, the green guy telling him to leave could be a bouncer of some sort, not letting him in because he's known to cause trouble. The thing is, something about this explanation has always rubbed me the wrong way, specifically the name Junior's and why Scott would label it that. While I've seen it claimed that Junior's is a common bar name, so of course Scott would use it, I haven't been able to find any actual evidence of this when looking it up.
Okay, finished another swing. So let's get 2 more done. So far we've gotten 3 of the ones I see on the back here. So this is number 9, number 10. Okay. Looks like we might get another Foxy. It was much harder to open last time. Probably just opened it in the wrong way. Okay. Oh, that's cute. Foxy has a little hat, and he's holding a present. That's really cute. Maybe some way I'll try to make these into, like, into SFM or something. Okay, I can't tell what this is. Well, this might be a Chica. I saw a beak, so I'll assume it's Chica. Looks like they're staying with mostly the original 4. Oh! Golden Chica? Why does this one feel heavier? So weird. Freddy, can you tell me what that's about? If you know anything about it? Why I just got a Golden Chica? That's really weird. Anyways.
To say there isn't a single bar named Junior's out there, but I couldn't find anything backing up the claim that it's a common enough name that Scott would label the building that just to make it clear it was a bar. However, if the name Junior's was more symbolic and not a literal name, it could instead be referring to Freddy's, which would be the junior location to the original Fredbear's Family Diner. The person outside, rather than being a bouncer then, could be warning William away from complicating an active disappearance or murder investigation depending on whether Charlie's body had been found in the back alley yet, which, as William would be a co-owner of the establishment, arrangement the green guy may assume William is aware of. Honestly, I have half a mind to say that unless William moved his family for the sake of proximity to the nightmare/eventually sister location bunker, the FNAF 4 restaurant could be a Freddy's given the Freddy's merch the kids have. How, if you account for how different minigames condense space differently, and sometimes in unrealistic ways, the general directions and travel path between the house and the restaurant match the house and Junior's pretty well. We know there were springlock suits at Freddy's locations thanks to phone guys saying they had them in his FNAF 3 recordings, and how Golden Freddy seems to show signs of both the crying child and a kid who we know was murdered at Freddy's by William. Speaking of which, the whole possession situation is another thing I think this minigame ties into, if a bit more indirectly. In the scene after the crying child is bitten, he's in a void with all his plushies. Mike, as distinguished by the gray text, apologizes for what he did, and then the text color switches to yellow as the crying child is told, "You're broken. We are still your friends. Do you still believe that? I'm still here. I will put you back together." Given William is presumably the one speaking in yellow through the Fredbear plush throughout the game, most people assume that this means it's William talking through the plush here, wanting to put his son back together in some way after his accidental death. But I don't think that's the case. Not only would it be strange for him to use the term friend to describe his relationship with his son, but while the yellow throughout the rest of the minigames is a bright yellow similar to Mustard Man's and Midnight Motorist, in this minigame specifically, the color is consistently a faded light yellow. While text colors are shared in the FNAF 4 minigames, such as the green color, the same person never speaks in two distinct colors, and it just so happens that this light yellow is used in a different game with almost the same words, implying that this color selection is not an accident.
I forgot to show you guys I was animating. I'm so sorry. I am a terrible streamer.
Happiest Day in FNAF 3, a pair of yellow eyes and light yellow
Yes, we
text
just got
colors
another.
reading, "We are still your friends. Do you believe that? The pieces are in place for you. All you have to do is find them. Rest." This
There we go.
seems to directly parallel what was said to
Doesn't
the
look
crying
right
child
because of the
by
bottom one
light
so
yellow
far, but
speaker, which implies that the
it
crying
looks good
child is
for
the
what
Golden
I
Freddy
know.
spirit experiencing Happiest Day in FNAF 3's Good Ending. Additionally, I don't exactly see William Afton being the one to put any of the spirits to rest, and the fact that the light yellow is used in FNAF World the same way it is in FNAF 4 leads me to believe that it's a different speaker, more specifically, Charlie Emily. This is where Midnight Motorist comes into play. It can function as partial evidence that Charlie died before the crying child, as well as that there's some connection between her and the crying child to which a shadow animatronic would lead him specifically to find her body. Additionally, as Charlie's the one who gave life to the main animatronics after the missing children incident, it's possible that she did the same with the crying child and Golden Freddy, possibly because the bite caused Fredbear to be infused with some of the crying child's spirit, remnant, or agony, as he was physically put in a coma and eventually died in the hospital. Alternatively,
Okay, so we're gonna do two more again. That is making 11 and 12. There we go. Okay. I think this is a Freddy. Don't know which one. Could be toy, could be normal. Funko doesn't really distinct the difference between them. It looks like a normal Freddy holding a present. So that's really cute. Okay. Number 12. I think it's Blora again. Oh, that's cool. So her colors are switched to green and blue instead of her, not green and blue, sorry, green and red instead of her normal blue. Which is really cool. Also reminds me more of Circus Baby than it does. I wonder why they chose Ballora as a different character than any other. But there could be another one in here. We're only halfway. We're only halfway done, so now you gotta clean afterwards.
These spirits do have the capability to manifest outside their vessels, as shown by numerous instances in the books and in the FNAF 3 End of Night minigames, so it's possible she reached out to him in that way. In any case, I think the story here is that after Charlie's death, the crying child was led by a shadow animatronic that spawned from her death to her body. Seeing the puppet collapsed on top of her scared him into thinking it was the animatronic that killed her, and William, who was already upset about him running off to the restaurant repeatedly to see the animatronics, and not wanting any suspicion placed on him or for the crying child to be taken seriously if he did see anything too suspicious, suspicious, encouraged and worked with his fear of animatronics to perform the nightmare experiments, possibly as the start of his studies of Remnant that likely started after noticing the physical and potential behavioral changes in the puppet after Charlie's death. Mike picked on his brother for being a crybaby, and eventually took things too far, putting him in the Fredbear animatronic's mouth, leading to his death and eventual revival by Charlie within Fredbear, which would eventually go on to become Golden Freddy. But that's just what I think, and it's absolutely valid if you think differently. But hey, if you're at all interested in my ideas, my next video is going to be a full FNAF timeline, featuring a special announcement for the channel, so make sure to subscribe for that. Please consider sharing with a friend.
Good on you. Oh no, that's not good. So they're talking about sorry, I'm not even talking to the mic. They're talking about
I'm just gonna make this the cold open.
They're talking about the Final Freddy's movie canon to canon to the games. Obviously it's in the same universe, obviously, but it's not the same timeline.
Open, even though it's not a good cold open. We're talking about spoilers in this podcast, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, you've been warned. Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good
I was
sense
on the
to
wrong.
do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your Fazbear entertainment needs. The Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Note, FFPP is not responsible for any loss of appetite, disinterest, dismemberment, or other legally classified statuses. So strap in and enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, your podcast for all your FNAF needs. I'm your host with the Toast Right Toast here, and I'm a little sleepy, a little eepy, an eepy little guy. Okay, so a little bit of context. It's like
No, we gotta we gotta talk about that opening. What the hell, Ryan? What is going on here? Hold on, I gotta fix this. Like, what is up with that? That was such a stupid opening. And you know it was stupid too, because you laughed at it. Then,
6 a.m. right now on the day this comes out. I had to record today because yesterday we were moving, and we're still moving. As you can see, I'm still in the same location, even though we're technically moving. Essentially, this may be Friday's video, but most likely this podcast episode will be the last recorded piece of the channel in this location. And let me tell you, moving sucks, especially when you have 2 kids and a movie to the franchise you make content about comes out the same week. So we didn't want to move Halloween weekend, but due to extraneous circumstances, we kind of have to. I don't want to get too much into the details of my personal life, but the apartment we're living in, when the previous landlords renovated it, they did not put the subfloor in correctly. So the second and third floor, which comprises our apartment, all of the floorboards are just in different areas coming up. Like, imagine your typical old house uneven flooring, but then put like bad floorboards on top of it. So not only is it uneven, but the floorboards are like separating or cracking in parts. And like, we've got a toddler who runs around barefoot, you know? Like, it's not safe. So we talked to our landlord, we're breaking lease, and we're getting out of here on the 31st. Like, that's our move-in date for the new place is the 31st. So our landlord was super cool and helped us get through this process and get our money back for the security deposit in the last month's rent and all that. But what it really comes down.
Okay, we gotta do one more, and I forgot to change it back to show I was animating. God damn it. That's fine. Anyways, I see there's 2 viewers, by the way. We got a Golden Chica. Just want to say that. If you know anything about it, please comment that. Okay. We got a Bonnie, it looks like, from the back. I got a lot of cleaning to do after this. Plus, I gotta figure out where I'm gonna put this. Okay, Bonnie has been changed to red and green. That is really cute. I don't know what to say about it. Okay, okay, we got I think a Foxy here. Ooh, shiny. It looks like a metallic form of one we've... My bad.
We have spoilers in this podcast, so if you...
So, very shiny version. Even the thing he was holding is very shiny as well. So I'm gonna call it a metallic Foxy. Even though obviously it's supposed to be metallic because he is a robot. But I mean, like, everything is metallic. We gotta move on back to the animation. This time, before I even go to the computer, I'm gonna do this. There we go. Sorry, when I meant by computer, I meant the live stream. The, video I'm listening to.
If you haven't seen the movie yet, you've been warned. Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good sense to do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your weekend. Then I'll bring up that question. And that way, that being said, I wanted to kind of go over general thoughts about the movie, lore implications, lore of the movie, but also how that lore can possibly relate to the games. And the format on this one's going to be a little different, mainly because typically I like to talk about the topic and then I'll move to questions. But the questions I picked for today are all about the movie. So I think I'm going to just talk about the movie at length for however long I feel like. And whenever I get close to one of the questions that I could find in my email about the movie, then I'll bring up that question. And that way we can just talk about the movie for like 40 minutes. But speaking of, right up at the top, if you have any questions or theories you want reviewed on the podcast or potential collabs, you can reach out to Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. That email is also in the description because it's a pain to type. I recommend just copy pasting it. But I guess we'll get right into it. I think I wanted to start talking about the movie by kind of just talking about how I felt, like lore aside, franchise aside, how I feel about the movie itself and how's the quality of the movie itself. So I'm of two minds with it, right? There's a part of me that's a FNAF fan. And as a FNAF fan, I think the movie's a 10 out of 10. Like, it gave us so many Easter eggs, everything we wanted, everything we didn't even know we wanted, like 2 Sparky references. That's crazy. So like there's a lot of stuff like that I think and they said it going into it, like they made this movie for the fans first, and hopefully other people like it too, but it's primarily for the fans. And watching this movie, I completely agree. This was a movie first and foremost for the fans of the franchise. And I don't think that's a problem. As a FNAF fan, this movie...
I know, we're talking about the FNAF movie and stuff, but we gotta move on to the next one here. Also, Fox again. I kept hearing the hitting the mic. I am so sorry. This is 15 now. And no, I don't know of any. I didn't even know this was a thing. This advent calendar. I don't know if they do anything for Thanksgiving. I don't know if they do anything for that. If they do, here's Freddy as his different colors. Actually, I think it's Toy Freddy. Just because of the cheeks again. The other one didn't have cheeks, so it's the different ones that have been here is Toy Freddy, Ballora. I think that's it so far. That aren't like the main 4. This looks like it might be a Balloon Boy from my angle. A lot of air in this one. Oh. Well, that's why it was so hard to see through. So in my view, this is see-through. Well, kind of. It's like it's not blue. Like, how do I explain it? From my view, when I put it up to like the light, I can almost see fully through it. So this might be glow in the dark, but also I think this is supposed to be Ice Balloon Boy or Ice Boy. You want to call him Ice Boy? That's fine. Okay. Remember to change it over, dummies. Okay. So I enjoy. That was actually clever. Balloon Boy was the other one as well, but I do enjoy that. That was actually cool to see.
Movie's a 10 out of 10. It's more than I could have expected. It's everything I could have wanted out of a movie after waiting for like 8.5 years for this. That being said, as a movie itself, separate from being a FNAF movie, just a movie period, I would probably err on the side of like a 7 out of 10. And we'll go into it, but overall I liked it. You know, overall I thought it was a pretty solid movie. I have a couple issues. But we'll do a compliment sandwich, we'll do some good, talk about all my issues, and then we'll go back to doing good. So first off, up front, one of the best things about this movie, I think the actors and the animatronics were all killer, and the soundtrack as well.
Yeah,
so,
soundtrack was really good. You know what? Actually, sorry, they named the song wrong. I want to animate this song. So the intro music is called Five Nights at Freddy's, by the way. I'm playing this on the William Afton Enjoyer. If you ever do see this, by the way, William Afton Enjoyer, your song title, then the song that's in the video, the name of it, I mean, is wrong. It's not correct. I think with Foxy Fatality, when I press on it, I get Follow the Yellow Rabbit. So I'm assuming this is Foxy Fatality. If I go to Follow the Yellow Rabbit, this is what's actually supposed to be playing. Oh yeah, if there's a disc coming out, I'm definitely gonna buy it. You know what's that? I remember the 190. Okay. 90. Move it a little bit. I put it the wrong direction. My bad. It's right above. If I remember correctly, it's right above. Yeah, it's right above. There. I don't know why I'm doing it that way. Okay. So we'll have that play in the background while I do this. Got two more. We will go back to the podcast, by the way. 17. So we might have a Chica. That might, we do. You can clearly see through that one. I do appreciate that these aren't black bags and they actually are red and green. Because I was thinking that they were going to be black. Because some like Lego sets do that. Like Lego Advents that did that, and it was really annoying. Yeah, there's Chica. She has the ho 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 thing. But she has a nice little hat. And I want to actually make these a thing, but I don't think I can do the bibs as well. But I can give a hat. That's very easy to do. And I'm talking about like on the actual animatronics, not like make it like a pop figure type thing. I'm talking about like on animation, the character. So this is called Mike's dream sequence, but the video is telling me Abby's in danger. That doesn't sound like Abby's in danger music. Okay, we got a Freddy, I think. Oh, we got a normal Freddy that is blood red. Like, really red. I don't recognize most of the music. The only one I recognize is the intro music. Next one is Fuzzy Friends, by the way. So this one. Ugh. $201. I'm gonna change this to 208. Just so I could have that little extra. I think I'm gonna have to go a little bit farther because it ends. My limit is 200 for this, by the way. And I don't want it to like fully rest because it looks awful whenever I did it that way. So we're doing 201. Turn it, but we're gonna go really, really small here. Too small. So not that one. This one is right there. So we want to go on the line here, on the bottom. Here is it. I'm going really far. Okay, here we go. So go all the way down to here. Should be good. $190 plus 16 equals 206. This, and then we'll do it this level so it's faster. Right above it. Nope. Right below it, sorry. I was looking at the wrong one. Actually, I think that's pretty much correct there. It looks really weird with the bottom one, but actually, I think I can change the visibility on this to make it look better. Okay. Probably help if I didn't do it there. I did it here. Yep, that's good. Okay, I see what it's a little bit off than what it was before, but that's fine. Oh, I forgot I need to do another. This keeps showing up, Honest Society. I don't know why. Okay. So we're on 19 and 20 now. So this looks like a Bonnie. Okay, that's cute. Bonnie in a little elf costume. It's really cute. Number 20. think this is another balloon boy. Oh, he is a candy cane balloon boy. A candy cane boy. Seems to be close to me. Yep, that's another candy cane boy. Or not another, but another candy cane animatronic. So we got 2 more rounds of that to go. Okay, we're gonna move back. We're gonna move back to this.
The actor on screen did a really solid job. And then the animatronics themselves. Not only did Jim Henson's Creature Shop knock out of the park the design of the animatronics, but they functioned so well in the movie. Like they were so expressive. They felt very robotic in a very realistic way. And they did a good job of being threatening when they needed to be and cautiously safe when they were trying to be not threatening. I thought that was really solid. So a bit of the bad. I think I think honestly, I think that most the movie suffers from is it was cut down to 90 minutes. I feel like if this movie was 2 or 2.5 hours, it probably would have had a bit more time to make certain aspects of the story not feel as rushed. Because, and this is also, I'm of two minds with this, because part of me understands that as a FNAF product, they want to keep parts of the story vague or ambiguous so people can do theories on it. But for a movie, I think what the Silver Eyes did well that the movie kind of fumbled was you can have this underlying mystery that has questions that still need answers, but still have a very cohesive feeling main story. And I don't think the movie quite achieved that. And I think it honestly will come down to if maybe on the DVD there's like a director's cut or something that's like a bit longer to expand on some things that needed expanding on. Because at the end of the movie, I kind of sat there and I was like, okay, so I can see like where the mystery lies here. But if I think about just like the actual plot itself, there are still moments where I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I feel like there were parts that were left out to be revealed later on as part of, the traditional FNAF mystery that for a casual movie experience kind of leaves you feeling like, oh, I guess they just like forgot about that part, which isn't a great feeling to have. And maybe that's just me. But I mean, for example, a perfect example of this, I think, is William Afton's character. Now, again, this isn't a knock on the actors here. Like Matthew Lillard did an amazing job, and I cannot wait to see him do more. Because I know there's rumors right now that FNAF 2 is in pre-production already, so I cannot wait to see more of him. But his character, like, without having the context of knowing like, oh, he's William Afton, so there's all this additional context. Without that context, his character feels very out of place, where we get to meet Steve Raglan, and we get to see him a little bit in the very beginning of the movie, and then he doesn't really show up again until the very end as William Afton, and it almost doesn't feel earned. Like just speaking from a movie's perspective, that his introduction that late into the movie feels very sudden, very jarring, and the way he talks,
he doesn't get
know everything about him.
He doesn't get enough screen time, William Afton, especially when he's the big bad of the whole series.
Him, whereas realistically, as the audience, we know nothing about him. We just know like, oh, he's a very bad man, and he killed 5 kids and kidnapped Garrett. Like, that's all we know. And then it's treated like we know like who this guy is and why. And I'm pretty sure it's probably because they want to reveal his story in the second and third movies, similar to the Silver Eyes, right? Where we just know like, oh, this guy Dave is actually William Afton. He owned this restaurant and he killed a bunch of kids. He's a bad guy. And then, but we in the Silver Eyes, right? We get to know him a lot more, and that's because he was there. He was on screen. You know, he was the security guard that they run into a couple times. He knows a weirdly large amount of stuff about the place. He was
Kind of like what
the
Vanessa does.
of the FNAF movie, but for the Silver Eyes. And because of that, when it's revealed he's a villain, we know, and we see a lot more from him. Then it's like, oh, okay, I kind of get what's going on now. Whereas in the movie, because we had Vanessa, and I think Vanessa's character was treated very well, where there's still a mystery about her, but we know enough about her to like categorize her in our mind. Because she was there, William Afton wasn't, so William Afton feels still kind of out of place. That I think either a director's cut or a second and third movie can alleviate. And kind of a symptom of that, it was very interesting, and I think we can actually move on to a question that talks about this. It talks about the lore of it more accurately, but I want to bring up the line anyway for quality's sake. This question comes from Pi He Him. Thank you for your question. In the FNAF movie, a scene that I know confused people was the Springlock scene where William Afton yells, "I always come back." While this is a cool scene, referencing one of the popular sayings in the franchise, it does seem out of place, since in the movie, this is the first time he's been defeated that we know of. Do you think there were any other times, perhaps while William Afton was in Nebraska, where he was defeated or almost caught in the movie universe that made him say this? And that's one of the things, right? Thank you for your question, Pi. I
think Daco explains this very well.
Because we know so little about William Afton's character, the things he doesn't make a lot of sense late in, right? Where we have this final confrontation, and some of the teasers work, like when Vanessa stands up to him and he's like, "Put the gun down and help me fix the mess that you created." We don't know a lot about Vanessa and William Afton at this moment, but I can, as a viewer, I see that and I'm like, oh, okay, William blames Vanessa for either just this mess or maybe even the missing child incident.
Wiggles
But
puppets,
it's very
creepy
clear
puppets.
that this is
So the reason
why-
I'm actually very excited about this type of thing that is helping us is that it helps with, like, for example, Puppet's model, which is all just its own joints. It's not like a main arm where it's 1, 2, 3 joints. It's sometimes they do the collarbone area. So you know how we can do this with our shoulder? That's also a thing, but that's not mostly known on animatronics because of their shell. If their shell is very small, like the actually I don't think the one the Frozen Elsa in Frozen in the animatronic form, actually I don't think that her shoulder goes up and down. I think it's just her arms, but it's so close to the body you can't really tell. You can't tell I'm freezing. We gotta do another one here. So we got 21 and 22. Okay. And we got I think a Freddy. Kind of see-through right now, right? At least that's my first thought when I'm looking at it. I opened it too high. Oh, it looks like Ice Bear or whatever they named him. Frost Bear. That's what it was. So that's cool. He's like what Balloon Boy was. So I want to know if you can actually, if it's actually like randomized or it's all the same thing. So there, I think this is a Chica. Oh, that's cute. She's a present. She is a present with a green bow. And I think her thing still says ho 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 on it. That's really cute. That is normal Chica, by the way. We haven't had any toy Chicas. I think they really want to refrain from using Toy Chica as much as possible. Because of, you know, sites.
Why she's so afraid of him is because he's very good at manipulating her. So like that, I see that, I read that, I understand that very quickly. But then when he gets spring locked, he grabs the spring trap head or the spring bunny head. It goes to put it back on, yells, "I always come back," and puts it on and dies, or like gets fully spring locked at least. And it's moments like that where, as a viewer who doesn't know any, like I imagine a viewer who doesn't know anything about the franchise sees that and they're like, that was kind of fucking weird. And that's it. Like it doesn't feel like, oh
yeah, my parents were the same way.
It's
they were
just
like, what
weird.
Just happened?
And going back to the Silver Eyes, and this is also a problem with the media, right? As a book, you have a lot more time to do things versus a movie. But in the book, it's established like, oh yeah, William Afton feels a lot more comfortable wearing the spring bunny suit. He's warped his mind so much he thinks he is.
Yeah, with the movie, you gotta infer that a lot more.
So he only talks while he's wearing it when he's in his William Afton mode. So like, it's one of those things where I don't know if that's necessarily the same in the movie, but something like an explanation like that could have just been like, oh, here's why William likes the suit. Here's why he's like this a little bit. Just a little bit more would have been very helpful. And as far as the line itself, I always come back. It did feel incredibly stilted. I understand that they need to have him say that, but I think that it needed, like in the script, it needed to be built up to a little bit more. Because where it is, like it's built up dramatically, but as far as dialogue goes, it's very out of nowhere. Whereas I think it would have been better instead
why
of
is
just
this looking weird?
I always come back.
Because I have to go the other way.
It probably would have been better if it was the end of like a small monologue of just like, you think you can, I made you, you think you can unmake me, you think you can kill me, you can't get rid of me, I always come back. You know what I mean? Like something to build up to that line would have made that line feel less stilted, in my opinion. And that's not Matthew Lillard's fault. He
did it well.
He said that line very well. He delivered that scene very well. I think this is more of a screenplay issue. That being said, going back to the good things I liked about the movie. Oh, and Pi, to your question, I have no idea. We have, and we'll get into this later. I'm so curious why William Afton went all the way to Nebraska to kidnap a random kid. So we will get into that.
Rocco explains
as far
probably
as going
a little
back
bit
to the
well.
movie and its quality, I think the emotional stakes were really good. And I actually I know this was controversial and this was a lot of people's like make or break with the movie. I really liked the fort scene.
Yes,
I think it was
I adored that
characterization
scene.
of the animatronics, to have them being a little silly. Have them acting like kids. It kind of makes the whole horror a little bit more tragic, where like it's very clear these animatronics aren't just vicious monsters. They're hurt and scared children, that are being manipulated by a serial killer. So I think the fort scene, while a little silly, I think it was good because it was a little silly. So moving on to the lore of the
Okay, so now he's breaking into that. We're gonna do the last bit, and I will be going to do stuff real quick. Yes, that is true. I did see about that, Freddy. About the eye patch, because he was 3D modeled, so you would never see the back of his head. So they never thought, oh, the eye patch needs to go somewhere. So, yeah, they actually just taped it on. They probably didn't. They probably put it into the model itself. But it's really funny just to think, oh, we're going to tape it on here. Because that piece of tape wouldn't keep it up. Because it would be, it would still have that weight of the eye patch in the front, pushing it down. Speaking about that, I think we have a Foxy. And it looks like it's a Foxy wearing a hat and have a present, but also an ice one as well. I have really lost myself with that voice. And here's another one. That's so lovely. Anyways. Yeah, we're gonna. This is 24. This is the last one. It looks like we might be getting another Freddy. 3, 2, 1, rip. Okay. So it looks like it's this normal Freddy with lights all around him that are actually 3D on. I don't know why they didn't do that with Bonnie, but whatever. That is really cool. But I still don't know about that golden chicken one. Golden Chica one. I said chicken, I'm so sorry. But I will be right back. I gotta do something real quick. I'll be in like probably like 5 minutes. Okay, I'm back.
The movie. I feel like this is a good time to do that. I think I want to start with the I want to focus on 3 main areas, I feel like. And that's the locations of the movie, the characters of the movie, and then specifically Garrett. So we'll start with the locations because this is kind of quick because it's less a lore thing and more of just like a that's weird kind of moment. I think a lot of us going into it was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be in Hurricane, Utah, like every other FNAF media. So it was kind of interesting when we saw the Nebraska poster, and I was like, that's weird. And then it was like, well, if we're probably not in Nebraska because that Nebraska poster is like novel and like a weird point. So because of that, we can also we're not in Nebraska. We get pretty much confirmation we're not in Nebraska in a few different directions. So I believe it was Hyperdroid on Twitter was the first person I saw notice this, but the court documents that get handed to Michael have a link for mncourts.com. So that would be minnesotacourts.com. So I think that's probably our strongest evidence of a location. But I do still hesitate only because it's a document and I don't know how much of the document was created for the movie and how much of the document was a stock asset that they modified for the movie. You know what I mean? So I do hesitate there a little bit. But I think that is our strongest evidence for a location. Other pieces of evidence for location for the movie, there's the GFPD cop car. And again, with a cop car specifically, we have to ask, okay, how much of this cop car was edited for the movie? Or how much of it was just the cop car they bought? But if it is edited for the movie, people did note that GFPD could be Granite Falls Police Department, and Granite Falls is a location in Minnesota. So again, 2 for 2 for Minnesota. Now, I was, my big hang up was kind of the giant map in William Afton's office, or I guess Steve Raglan's office. I should have said up front, let me make, I'm just going to make this the cold open, even though it's not a good cold open. We're talking about spoilers in this podcast. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you've been warned. And I'll just make that the cold open. I was like, oh, I'll have to remind myself I'm not going to remember to record and edit a separate spoiler alert. So that's the cold open now. But the map in Steve Raglan's office was of specific interest to me because the way they framed the office, the conversation was pointed towards that map the whole time. So a little bit of rule of filmmaking, when you're shooting a conversation, you never want to cross the eye line of the conversation. So if there's two people and you're back and forthing the shot, unless you're doing something specific, if you want a understandable dialogue shot, you stay on one line of their eye contact. So either you back and forth it here or you back and forth it here. Once you go here and then go here, it confuses the audience. Now, you can do that if you're trying to do something specific, which they sort of do a little bit when William goes to get coffee. But even then, they're technically still on the left side. They're just a lot more angled because they're doing a different shot. So because of that, they have to pick, okay, what side do we want it to face? And I don't know if it's just a filmmaking thing of like maybe the office was only a 3-walled office and they were going in from that side. But regardless, as a set, you know, in a movie, they choose everything that's in there. And the way the dialogue is shot is that map is in almost every shot, if not just out of focus. So the map felt important to me. I couldn't locate it. Somebody did. Let me actually, credit where credit's due, find their YouTube comment username. So the comment was from KelseyMens8457, who recognized that map as Oklahoma City. And I checked it. That 100% is the district map for Oklahoma City. So then the question becomes, why? Right? So is the movie implying that it actually takes place in Oklahoma City? So the question becomes why, right? Because it's a matter of, is that telling the truth? And is that office literally located in Oklahoma City? I think there's 3 options. Either that, there's the option that maybe William Afton is from Oklahoma City and he likes that area.
They might skip FNAF 2, like the game. They might not do all the characters in it, but I would assume it's the same way that they did Foxy, where nobody could play as the character. It had to be machine anyways. The problem is how you're going to make it actually look good. Because Scott made that out of random parts. Like, it was not meant to be on real.
Possibly. Then the third option, which is also very likely, is again, how much of this movie is specifically crafted and how much of this movie, like all movies, did they buy set design? And if they bought set design for that office, a map, an unlabeled map that never says Oklahoma City, it just happens to be the map of Oklahoma City, makes a lot of sense. Where like they wouldn't, in like any other movie, they wouldn't expect people to be like, oh, we need to figure out where this map is of, and it's now important. But I don't know. This is also, they realize it's a FNAF movie. You know, Scott was heavily involved with the process. And there's other scenes where like a small detail in the background is very important. So it's interesting to consider what is and isn't purposeful. Then there's the fourth option. Someone in my comments brought up that like, It's very Scott to include hints to two vastly different locations.
Yeah, the torture machine is its own Freddy, by the way. It's its own torture Freddy. It's not any other character. They just made it for the movie. So I found that out, and that was killing me the whole time. You could say torturing, I guess. But yeah, I did find that out, and I'm just glad I can sleep at night.
To then just confuse the audience, not to confuse the audience, but to confuse the theorists on what the actual location is. Regardless, I think a big question that I had immediately after is mirrored by this question by Jacob He Him. Thank you for your question. In the movie, why do you think Afton took Garrett? If Afton's signature kill was at the pizzerias, why is he suddenly kidnapping kids in the middle of the woods in a different state than giving a token, the toy, to his daughter? Yeah, that's a big one. And I feel like the majority of reasons why we'll get into when we talk about the characters and Garrett specifically. But I wanted to bring up this question now while it's relevant while we're talking about locations, just because that's a great point, right? If we're in Minnesota or if we're in Oklahoma, why would Afton go all the way to Nebraska to capture some random kid? So I think that definitely shows that Garrett and Mike's family is much more important than this first movie is implying. And that's not a fault of this. I don't think that's a bad thing.
I think
It's
the father
what I would call, like, a
is
good
the
Easter egg for
co-owner.
a
I think
movie
it's supposed to be a
where
stand-in for
It doesn't
Henry.
affect the central plot, and it doesn't leave the
And I don't-
central
he
plot
barely
feeling
talks, first off.
confused. But it's one of those things that you think about it, and you go,
But
"That is
I'm not
weird.
entirely
Why
sure.
would he
It
go
could
all
be
the way to
the random
Nebraska?"
worker in the
And then
back.
a second movie can come in and be like, hey, there's actually more to this family dynamic than you know. You know, so it's moments like that that I think are really good pieces of mystery that don't leave the audience feeling confused as much. You're getting cough drop, Riley, because my throat really hurts because I'm still sick. So deal with it. Anyway, I'll try not to do any gross. I'll try to do as little gross mouth sounds as I possibly can. But I think now's a good time to move on to the characters and names. So immediately, right, I think that Mike Schmidt is his real name. I've seen some people wondering if he's an Afton. I know in the games, Michael is William Afton's son, and even to an extent, it's nearly confirmed, not fully confirmed, it's nearly confirmed that Mike Schmidt is a fake name used by Michael Afton at the FNAF 1 location. I know I went into this movie assuming it was going to be a Michael Afton, but after seeing this movie, I do not think he is an Afton. I do not think that is Michael Afton. I think Mike and Garrett are not related to William Afton in any way. And realistically, I think that for a couple reasons. One of them, the way William reacts to Mike's name, I think is super interesting, right? In the first scene we see with William and Mike, he's going over his case file and he goes, Mike, and then he pauses. He looks at Mike. He leans in and he like stares at him for a second and then sits back, just, you want some coffee? And his like whole demeanor changes. And I think that was like screaming at the audience, like, hey,
Yeah, I
Steve
see what
Raglan.
I'm using it for each frame of like what in the time it should be, because it looks like it's the same pattern. So yeah, that's basically my thought on it. I think I need to go a little bit more down, but we'll worry about that when we get to it.
Isn't who we think he is, and he knows who Mike is. So like the fact, and it's very specific in the order, right? He sees Mike Schmidt. He sees the name Mike Schmidt. He pauses on the name Mike Schmidt. Then he looks at Michael's face to see if he recognizes him. And because of that order, I feel like he saw the name Schmidt and went, no shot, this is the Schmidt I know. And he double checked, saw that it was, and then he's like, I need to get him inside Freddy's now. So then the question is why, right? Like, what is the deal between Steve and Mike? I don't necessarily know. I said Steve. What's the deal between Will and Mike? What is their problem? And it's mainly that I don't know because we just don't have a lot of evidence for it. I have a feeling, right? Like I've got a pretty strong feeling of what I think the deal is. And I think it's actually encapsulated pretty well by this question. So we'll move on to this question. This is by Charky, he, him. Thank you for your question. To be completely honest, I tried to connect the movie lore directly to the game lore by attempting to draw parallels, which I admit might be a bit of a stretch. I believe that Vanessa is the movie stand-in for Mike Afton, and that the crying child is yet to be revealed as her brother. I assume the
That's not a bad way to look at it. Kind of seeing that Vanessa is actually like Michael Afton. But in this one, kind of like if he didn't die in, well, didn't die, but like didn't get shoved with Ennard, I think that's what he would be doing in that location. Actually, it could be even that's why he's in FNAF 1. I don't know if they ever made a fix Foxy for the movie. They might have just had it on accident.
The crying child exists in the movie lore, though there's no real evidence, and that he dies the same way he does in the games. However, this time, instead of Michael, Vanessa was responsible for the bite of 83. This is why I think that during William's confrontation with Vanessa, he says something along the lines of, "You started this." So yeah, it was this is the mess that help me clean up the mess that you created, or something like that. Consequently, I also believe that the Schmidts are the movie equivalents of Henry's children and family. So we'll get to that first half, because I do agree with a lot of that as well. But, bro, I should not be recording this early. I literally just stood up to, like, fix my apron, and it took me, like, a minute to retie it, because I kept just doing it wrong. I am way too eepy for this. Anyway, I will get to that first half of that question, because I do agree with a lot of it, but I think the main part of it that I think what I want to talk about right now, I do think the Schmidts are the Henry Emily family, right? I think in the movie, what they're going for here is that Mike is Henry's son. Mike and Garrett are Henry's children. And that Henry Schmidt is going to be revealed in the second or third movie to be the co-creator of the Fazbear brand with William Afton. I even mentioned in my Easter egg video that possibly Mike's dad or that mechanic we see in the background is Henry. And upon looking at it again, I think they might just be the same person, right? Like, I could see the mechanic in the background being Mike's dad, and just, like, he's in the background. And I think where I'm at right now, to me, that's, like, the only good reason for William Afton to go multiple states away to kidnap a random kid, right? Is if in this continuity, William tries to get back at Henry like he always does, and this time they're camping and he just scoops up Garrett, probably kills him later. I don't know. But that is another point of contention now that I think about it. Why does he kidnap Garrett and not just kill him? Right? Like, that seems very strange. The fact that we don't know if Garrett is dead or not is very interesting to me. And I think a point in that favor is that, like, Abby talks to all these ghosts. She never mentions talking to Garrett. So Garrett might just not be a ghost yet. Now, granted, William does directly say he kills him. So I do think Garrett probably is dead, but I would say there's evidence to argue otherwise. But I think the line from William was like, "First I killed your brother, now I kill you, symmetry, my friend," or whatever. So I do assume Garrett is dead. That being said, man, Garrett is such a question mark for me. I think if Garrett's presence is in this movie at all, I wonder if Garrett is the crying child. And that's why I disagree with this question, with your question, Sharky, is the "it's me" in the office definitely feels like it's reaching out to Mike. And if it's reaching out to Mike, I feel like that means it would have to be Garrett more than anything. And Mike even says he feels closer to Garrett while he's at Freddy's. So if he feels closer to Garrett while he's there, and the "it's me" was for Mike, I feel like Garrett's trying to reach out to him. And if Garrett's trying to reach out to him like that, that's very crying child to me. That being said, my crackpot theory, and I don't have a lot of evidence for this, I just kind of feel like Garrett's possessing Balloon Boy. And I think that explains why, even though Balloon Boy isn't in this movie, he has 3 dedicated jump scares for his toy that like keeps reaching out to Mike seemingly. Where like one of them's the first one, I was like, okay, maybe it was just left in the locker. But then again in the supply closet where it's just sitting there looking at him, it's like, okay, something is moving this toy. So I could be crazy, I could be wrong. And then you look at like the mid-credits jump scare like bonus scene with Corey Kenshin again, and we have a taxi door open and shut, and then the Balloon Boy toys in there. Like that's, it's probably just a gag, but that feels like a ghost doing that. Sorry if my thoughts are a little disjointed. I keep taking like 2-minute breaks to just like collect my thoughts because I'm very eepy. So I do think that Michael and Garrett are the stand-ins for the Henrys. So for Henry's family. So I think in the second and third movie we'll see more about that. And then as far as Vanessa and William, I don't know if there is a crying child. I don't know. I only say that because like I really feel like Garrett has been acting as the crying child with the whole "it's me" thing. But then again, if Garrett is the Henrys, then I could see Garrett being the puppet, which we don't really see in the movie, at least as far as I can tell. But I could see that, especially with the I think there's a lot of hints to FNAF 2, the game, as being a big part of the sequel, with the music box at the end of the credits, the "Come Find Me" in that FNAF 2 TTS voice. Like, I think there's something is happening with that. And if so, if the puppet's involved in the second movie, I could see that being Garrett. But I definitely feel like one of the big things we get, and this kind of connect is like how the lore is beginning to connect to the games. And actually, this will answer our 4th question, right? Yes. So this one will be our 4th and final question, but we'll still be talking for a bit. This is from Snail He Him. Thank you for your question. Watched the FNAF movie last night, and I was surprised and also a little disappointed. Interesting. To see that they made Vanessa and Afton for the movie. Do you think that this confirms that Vanessa A in the games is Vanessa Afton?
Well, obviously it doesn't confirm, but I honestly think it's supposed to mean something. Like, because we know Vanny and Vanessa is a thing, but she's not related. But she ends up being technically a daughter to Afton. Obviously I'm talking about Glitch Trap, the code for that is trying to copy Afton. But basically she sees this code as her father, subsequently Afton. So yeah, that's my thought on it.
And that Bill A is William, like how some people theorized back when FNAF AR came out. I don't think it confirms anything. And I do, and this isn't a knock to you, Snail. Thank you for your question. A pet peeve of mine, people have been using confirms very aggressively in this theory space, where like, I think suggests is a much more neutral and safer word to be using in the theory space. I'm not trying to police how people talk. Don't get me wrong. Like, you can say whatever the hell you want. I'm just like some person on the internet. Do what you want. But to me, I really dislike the word confirms because I feel like this community uses confirms to mean suggest, right? People will see like one detail and be like, oh, this confirms that. No. Often this will suggest that and like act as evidence for that. But the word confirm, the definition of confirm is literally like it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is true. And I'm going to be really honest with you. In the FNAF lore, there is, I would say, maybe less than 10% of the major story is confirmed. So whenever people have been using the word confirm for like small details like that, I dislike that personally. Not a knock on you, Snail. This is just a gripe that I wanted to get out there. I think it suggests that Vanessa might be an Afton. I don't think the Vanessa in the games is an Afton because I don't think the timeline works there. Right? We know William dies in a Springlock accident like somewhere in the 90s, early 2000s, like vaguely. And Vanessa seems like in her mid 20s. So if William dies in like the mid 90s, right? Then she would have had, by the time of Security Breach, she'd.
So I think she would be at the same age that Vanessa is in the movie. Sorry. I think the time that he dies is the same age she is in the movie. I think she would be much older. Like, she wouldn't look as she is for the movie or like in the game.
Would have to be 30 or 40, which I guess is technically possible, but it seems unlikely. But to be fair, it's one of those things where I don't think it matters much. Specifically because in Security Breach, we definitely get the sense that Vanessa, either through Vanny or otherwise, is kind of like becoming William Afton's daughter. So even if she isn't, she is acting as though she is. And that's the important part. So whether or not she is an Afton, I think it's important that in the games, she's becoming an Afton. Because I don't personally think Vanessa is Elizabeth or like an Elizabeth bot or even necessarily haunted by Elizabeth. But I think whatever is pulling the strings for Afton and Security Breach is, I do very much believe something is trying to recreate William's family, and they're using Vanessa to turn her into Elizabeth. But I don't think that's what the movie is trying to tell us. What I think the movie is telling us as far as the FNAF lore, like the games go, is a few things. One, I do think this is suggesting that Henry had two kids in the games. Henry had Charlotte and Henry had Sammy. I think it's suggesting Henry had two kids. I also very strongly think the relationship we see between William and Vanessa is.
I want to say one thing. Abby in the movie feels like an anomaly. If you know what I mean. If her mother is dead, and you would think if she died by suicide, it would not be long after Garrett being taken away and missing. It would not be long after. And Mike hasn't seen his father. I don't know where Abby comes into the middle of it, where, because I don't think, after you have a child missing, you wouldn't have, fun time, because of that. So I don't understand where it could happen, where she can be born and be this old in the movie. So I've always been thinking it feels like an anomaly with her. Like, she shouldn't exist, if you think about it logically. Because Abby can obviously see the ghost, which is one thing. And not in her dreams, I should say. And then she saw Mike through his dream. Or it was a memory. I'm not sure about that scene. It's just weird to me that that's all together. And then her birth is in massive question of, like, is it real or not? Like, when did it happen? Like, what happened? Because I'm pretty sure in the movie they explain it that her mother basically killed herself.
Is reflective of what we see between William and Michael early on in the franchise, where I think this is suggesting that Michael, as has been theorized by many people, that Michael does take more of a, I guess, villain approach earlier in the timeline by doing things for William because of his manipulation of him. Like Sister Location, for example, we get confirmation like, I did what you told me to, I went and did this for you. And I think that's coming, I think we now have evidence because of the movie that might be coming from a place of manipulation, where after the death of the crying child, William tells Michael what he does and blames Michael for it. Like, oh, because of you, I had to go kill those kids. Because of you, now these things are getting haunted. And because of you, you have to go fix it because the fun times killed your sister. You know, so I think that line in the final confrontation of help me clean up the mess that you created, I think that's showing us how William treated Michael and how William controlled Michael, at least up until he gets scooped. Because I do think once Michael dies and comes back, he's definitely much more brave, much more like willing and brave towards facing William. As far as any other lore goes for how the movie connects to the games, I do think it's very interesting that the movie's also doubling down on the ghost interpretations of Alone Together, where the idea that like ghosts will affect your dreams, then they can affect things around you, and that their ghosts aren't necessarily like malevolent. They're just, they don't have their memories and they need to be helped to be reminded. And we see this in the books, we see this in Alone Together, and we're seeing this again in the movie. So I definitely think this is the direction the story wants to go with its paranormal stuff. So I'm excited to see where that goes. I think that's really compelling. I was going into this movie thinking that part of the lore we were going to get for the games is evidence to suggest that FNAF, like further evidence to suggest that FNAF 1 takes place long after the restaurant closes. But I don't think so. At least I don't think that's what the movie is telling us, because the movie takes place in the year 2000. And I know for a fact FNAF 1 takes place earlier than that. We're talking 93, 98, somewhere around that area.
Yeah.
So I don't think necessarily the movie is trying to tell us that FNAF 1 takes place long after the restaurant closes. Something that I think lore-wise could have expanded on in the movie to make audiences feel a little bit less confused is the why, right? Like we get like, oh, William's a bad man, he killed 5 kids and stuffed them into the suits. We don't get a lot of reason why. And granted, that's probably because they want to reveal that in the second or third movie, but we could have had a little bit more information on that, because it feels very like, whoa, what the hell? Okay, so he's just a weirdo, you know? And then specifically about William, I think something that would have made his presence a lot cooler, there's a lot of wide shots in this movie, especially when the animatronics are attacking. And I really think having just little glimpses of Spring Bonnie walking through the background in different parts could have gone a long way to not only make a really cool Easter egg for people to find, but to have William's presence be a lot more pronounced. Like during the break-in, right? I think we see a perfect example of this happening that I think could have been happening for William throughout much more of the movie. And that's with during the break-in. And I point this on this Easter egg video. It's not an Easter egg, it's just a really cool moment. When Carl is in the kitchen and the cupcake starts messing with him to like get him to look in the fridge, the first time the cupcake makes noise, points at Garrett with the spinning fan to the like exterior hallway behind him. And as we're focused on Carl going, I think I said Garrett, as we're focused on Carl going towards the fridge, in the background, Chica walks behind that fan through the hallway. That's a great moment. Things, very, very small, minor things like that for William, I think would have been so good. Like early in the confrontation, you know, when they're running and like one of them's hiding and like Foxy's standing right there. If like 10 feet back, you just saw like a glimpse of Spring Bonnie walking between like one room to another, huge. Just like a lot of things like that, I think would have been really, really cool, a really nice touch, and would have had William feel like more of a presence in the movie, you know? And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the YouTuber cameos, right? So we had the Employee of the Month board that had a lot of YouTubers on it, and then we had 2 on-screen main YouTuber cameos. I know there was going to be 3.
Yeah,
but
Mark Fire was supposed to be one.
Filming for Iron Lung, Mark could not make it, so they were like, oh, maybe next time. Which, by the way, I'm super excited for Iron Lung. I cannot wait to see that. But we had a Matt Pat cameo and a Corey X Kenshin cameo. I liked them both. I thought I did think the YouTuber cameos made a lot of sense for how like Let's Play centric and how like YouTube centric this franchise is. Like you gotta pay homage to that. I think I do have a little bit of a controversial take on it though. I think the Corey X Kenshin cameo was perfect. I think it was just the right amount of screen time, just the right amount of dialogue. It didn't draw. It felt very natural, but it was still a really good cameo for the fans. And now this isn't a knock on MatPat at all. I think MatPat's cameo went on like one line of dialogue too long. Just like one, like 5 seconds too long. And maybe that's just because I've watched Game Theory a lot more than I've watched Corey Kenshin. But when I was watching it, I was like, this is a long cameo. And it just felt a little weird. That's all. I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I loved it. And the theater went crazy for it. But I was like, this is going on like a little long. I don't know. It felt weird. Maybe it's just because I'm more used to seeing MatPat's face. I think that's probably what it is. And I was like, oh wait, that's the YouTuber I watch. Whereas like I've watched Corey Kenshin's stuff, but I don't watch him as much. So it might just be that, to be honest.